The impossible assignment. The massive observation deck of the Galactic Federation station stretched before Captain Marcus Chen like a window into infinity. Stars wheeled slowly beyond the transparent aluminum barriers, their light painting shifting patterns across the polished floor. Marcus stood with his hands clasped behind his back, watching a Veltheri diplomatic cruiser dock at the station's primary port. The ship was a thing of terrible beauty, its hull crafted from what appeared to be living metal that rippled with bioluminescent patterns. Marcus had been a cultural specialist for the Human Diplomatic Corps for 12 years. He had negotiated with silicon-based life forms who communicated through harmonic vibrations, mediated disputes between hive-minded insectoids and individualistic mammals, and once spent 3 months learning to appreciate the complex color-based poetry of the chromatic collective. But nothing in his extensive experience had prepared him for the message that had summoned him to this neutral station. The door behind him hissed open, and Marcus turned to see Ambassador Zixandra enter the observation lounge. The Veltheri was imposing even by the standards of her species, standing nearly 8 feet tall with the characteristic crystalline skin that shifted between deep purple and silver depending on her mood. Her 4 arms moved with fluid grace, each ending in hands that possessed an extra joint that allowed for impossibly delicate manipulation. Most striking were her eyes, large and multifaceted like those of an insect, but holding an intelligence that was decidedly mammalian in its calculation. "Captain Chen," she said, her voice carrying the harmonic undertones that made Veltheri speech sound like music even when discussing mundane matters. "Thank you for responding to our summons so quickly." Marcus inclined his head respectfully. "Ambassador Zixandra, your message indicated a matter of critical importance to human-Veltheri relations. I came as soon as I could arrange transport." The ambassador's skin shifted toward a deeper purple, indicating either stress or amusement. With the Veltheri, it was often difficult to tell the difference. "Indeed, what I am about to propose may seem unusual, even by the standards of interspecies diplomacy. Please, sit." They moved to a seating area designed to accommodate the various physiologies of Federation species. Marcus took a human standard chair, while Zixandra arranged herself on a raised platform that allowed her to tower over him, a subtle but clear statement about the power dynamics of their conversation. "Captain Chen," she began, "humanity has been seeking expanded trade rights with the Veltheri Empire for nearly 5 years. Your species has much to offer in terms of technological innovation and cultural diversity. However, there are those among my people who question whether humans possess the necessary discipline and cultural refinement for deeper integration with Veltheri society." Marcus nodded carefully. The Veltheri Empire controlled 17 star systems and possessed some of the most advanced biotechnology in known space. Their medical innovations alone could revolutionize human healthcare, but they had always maintained strict barriers against what they considered chaotic species. "I understand there have been concerns about human unpredictability," Marcus said diplomatically. "What can I do to address these concerns?" Zixandra's laugh was like crystal chimes in a gentle breeze. "Direct and to the point. Very human of you. What I propose is a test, Captain Chen. A demonstration of human adaptability and wisdom that would satisfy even our most conservative critics." She gestured, and a holographic display materialized between them. The image showed a young Veltheri female, perhaps in her early 20s by human equivalent. Her skin was a rare shade of deep blue shot through with veins of silver, indicating noble birth of the highest order. Her features were delicate, but carried a hardness that suggested a will of iron. Most striking were her eyes, which held a defiance that practically blazed from the projection. "Princess Lyra Seth," Zixandra said, her tone mixing affection with exasperation. "Daughter of the Third House, heir to vast holdings on the core worlds, and the most problematic individual in the entire empire." Marcus studied the hologram, noting the subtle signs of tension in the princess's posture. "Problematic how?" "She has been expelled from 7 educational institutions, rejected 4 arranged marriages, and has a talent for causing diplomatic incidents that would make your human politicians envious. In the past year alone, she has publicly challenged 3 separate imperial decrees, organized protests among the lower castes, and once smuggled a group of refugees off-world in defiance of deportation orders. She sounds like someone with strong convictions, Marcus observed carefully. Zixandra's skin shifted toward silver, a sign of increased interest. An intriguing perspective. Most would simply call her impossible. Certainly, the 17 tutors, mentors, and behavioral specialists we have assigned to her over the years would agree. She has driven them all to resignation or nervous breakdown. Marcus was beginning to understand where this conversation was heading. And you want me to succeed where 17 others have failed. Precisely. The challenge is this. Spend 6 months with Princess Lyraseth. If you can help her find a way to channel her energies into constructive outlets while maintaining her essential spirit, then humanity will be granted full trade partnership with the Velthari Empire. This would include access to our biotechnology, cultural exchanges, and preferential trading status. And if I fail? Zixandra's expression grew serious. Then humanity's application for expanded relations will be permanently denied. Your species will be classified as fundamentally incompatible with Velthari civilization. The weight of the decision settled on Marcus's shoulders like a physical burden. The economic implications alone were staggering. Earth's colonies were struggling with resource shortages, and Velthari biotechnology could solve dozens of critical problems. But beyond economics, this was about humanity's place in the galactic community. Why me specifically? Marcus asked. Surely there are specialists better suited to dealing with rebellious nobility. Your record speaks for itself, Captain. You have a talent for understanding cultures from the inside out, for finding common ground where others see only differences. Moreover, you have something our previous attempts have lacked. Which is? You are not Velthari. You have no preconceptions about how our society should function, no investment in maintaining the status quo. Perhaps an outsider's perspective is exactly what Princess Lyraseth needs. Marcus stood and moved back to the observation window, watching as the Velthari cruiser completed its docking procedures. The ship was beautiful, but he could see the weapon systems built into its elegant lines, the subtle reminders that the Velthari Empire had not achieved its position through diplomacy alone. I should mention, Zixandra continued, that the princess can be volatile. She possesses considerable psychic abilities, including limited telekinesis and empathic projection. Her last tutor required medical treatment after she used her abilities to induce a panic attack that lasted for 3 days. Are you warning me or trying to discourage me? I am being honest about the challenges you would face. Princess Lyraseth is not merely spoiled or undisciplined. She is brilliant, willful, and absolutely convinced that our entire social structure is fundamentally flawed. She has the intellect to articulate her criticisms and the power to make her displeasure felt. Marcus turned back to face the ambassador. What methods have previous tutors used? Traditional approaches, behavioral conditioning, social pressure, restriction of privileges. The assumption has always been that her rebellion stems from insufficient discipline or excessive indulgence. Has anyone ever asked her why she rebels? Zixandra's skin shifted through several colors rapidly, a sign of confusion or surprise. Asked her. Captain Chen, she is nobility. Her role is to accept guidance, not to provide explanations. With respect, Ambassador, that might be part of the problem. For a long moment, the two sat in silence, each lost in their own thoughts. Finally, Marcus made his decision. I accept the challenge with one condition. Name it. I do this my way. No interference from imperial advisors, no predetermined methods or approaches. If I'm going to help Princess Lyraseth, I need the freedom to understand her on her own terms. Zixandra's skin settled into a steady silver, indicating agreement. Very well. The princess is currently residing at the Imperial Academy on Velthari Prime. You will be provided with appropriate accommodations and access to her. Beyond that, the approach is entirely yours. Marcus nodded, feeling a mixture of excitement and apprehension. When do I start? Immediately. The transport to Veltheri Prime departs in 6 hours. I should warn you, Captain Chen, that the princess has been informed of your arrival. Her response was colorful. What did she say? Zixandra's expression might have been a smile if her species possessed the facial structure for it. She said, and I quote, "Another mentor. How delightful. I wonder how long this one will last before running away screaming." Marcus couldn't help but grin. She sounds like quite a character. That is one way to describe her. Another would be dangerous. Do not underestimate Princess Lyraseth, Captain. She is not merely a spoiled child acting out. She is a force of nature contained within the body of a young woman, and she has very little patience for those who would try to change her. As Marcus prepared to leave the station, he found himself wondering what kind of person could inspire such a mixture of fear and respect in someone as powerful as Ambassador Zixandra. Whatever challenges awaited him on Veltheri Prime, he was certain of one thing. This assignment would be unlike anything he had ever faced before. The journey to Veltheri Prime would take 3 days, giving him time to study the cultural files and prepare for what might be the most important diplomatic mission of his career. But as the station dwindled behind him, and the stars stretched into the familiar lines of hyperspace, Marcus couldn't shake the feeling that he was about to encounter someone who would change his understanding of what it meant to be human in a galaxy full of alien wonders. The princess was waiting for him, and from everything he had heard, she would be anything but easy to understand. But perhaps that was exactly what made her interesting. After all, the most worthwhile challenges were never the simple ones. The unexpected alliance. The Imperial Academy on Veltheri Prime was a marvel of bioengineered architecture. Living walls pulsed with bioluminescent patterns that responded to the emotional states of the inhabitants, while the floors themselves seemed to grow from some massive organism that had been shaped into corridors and chambers. Marcus walked through the halls beside Academy Director Thelmore, an elderly Veltheri whose silver-white skin indicated both advanced age and high social standing. Princess Lyraseth is in the isolation wing. Director Thelmore explained as they navigated the maze-like structure. Her recent incident required us to restrict her access to common areas. What kind of incident? Marcus asked, though he suspected he didn't really want to know. She used her psychic abilities to link the minds of every student in the academy for approximately 30 seconds. The experience was quite overwhelming for most. Several students required medical attention, and the academy's mental health counselors are still treating others for anxiety disorders. Marcus stopped walking. She linked their minds, all of them. Nearly 300 students, yes. When questioned about her motives, she claimed she wanted everyone to experience what empathy actually feels like. Her exact words were, "Perhaps if you could feel each other's pain, you might stop causing so much of it." They resumed walking, but Marcus's mind was racing. The level of psychic ability required for such a feat was extraordinary. More importantly, the princess's stated motivation suggested someone deeply troubled by the suffering around her, not someone acting out of mere selfishness. Has anyone ever asked her about the problems she sees in Veltheri society? Marcus asked. Director Thelmore's skin shifted toward purple, indicating discomfort. Captain Chen, with respect, the princess is young and idealistic. Her perspective on our society is necessarily limited and naive. Our role is to help her understand her proper place, not to encourage her alternative viewpoints. They stopped before a door that looked more like a biological seal than traditional architecture. The surface rippled with defensive patterns that Marcus recognized as warning displays. "A word of caution," the director said as he placed his hand on a bioscanner. "Princess Lyraseth has refused to see her last 3 assigned mentors. She has become quite skilled at psychological manipulation and may attempt to turn you against the Academy or even the Empire itself. Do not be deceived by her intelligence or apparent sincerity." The door dilated open, revealing a chamber that was part luxury suite and part prison cell. The walls were lined with what appeared to be books. though Marcus knew they were actually biostorage devices containing vast libraries of information. Expensive furnishings suggested comfort, but the lack of external windows and the single exit made the confines clear. Princess Lyra Seth stood at the room's center, and Marcus immediately understood why 17 previous mentors had failed. She was not merely beautiful by Galtheri standards. She was magnificent. Her blue-silver skin seemed to glow with its own inner light, and her large eyes held an intelligence so fierce it was almost intimidating. But it was her posture that struck him most profoundly. She stood like a caged predator, coiled with barely contained energy, and ready to strike at the first sign of threat. "Another mentor," she said, her musical voice carrying an edge of steel. "How wonderfully predictable. Tell me, human, are you here to reform me, civilize me, or simply break my spirit through systematic psychological torture?" Director Fellamore began to speak, but Marcus held up a hand to stop him. "Actually, Director, I think I'd like to speak with the princess alone. Captain Chen, I must advise against. I appreciate your concern, but I believe privacy would be beneficial for this initial conversation." The director's skin cycled through several colors before settling on a resigned purple. "Very well, but I will be monitoring from the adjacent chamber if there are any signs of psychic attack." "I understand," Marcus said, though privately he doubted the princess represented any physical danger to him. Emotional or psychological danger was another matter entirely. Once they were alone, Marcus took a seat on one of the bioformed chairs, deliberately choosing a position that put him slightly below the princess's eye level. It was a subtle gesture of respect that he hoped she would notice. "You didn't answer my question," Lyra Seth said, still standing in the center of the room like a statue carved from living crystal. "Because it was based on a false assumption," Marcus replied calmly. "I'm not here to reform you, civilize you, or break your spirit. I'm here to understand you." For the first time since he'd entered the room, the princess showed genuine surprise. Her defensive posture relaxed slightly, and she tilted her head in a gesture that seemed almost curious. "Understand me? How refreshingly novel. And what exactly do you hope to understand? Why someone with your intelligence and abilities has chosen to wage war against the very society that gave her everything?" Lyra Seth laughed, but there was no humor in the sound. "Gave me everything. Captain Chen, may I show you something?" Before he could respond, she gestured toward one of the biostorage units. The device responded to her touch, projecting a series of holographic images into the air between them. Marcus found himself looking at scenes from various parts of the Veltheri Empire. Crowded housing facilities where lower-caste workers lived in conditions barely above squalor, medical centers where treatment was clearly determined by social status rather than need, and educational facilities where young Veltheri were sorted into rigid categories based on their birth circumstances rather than their abilities. "This is what my society gave me," Lyra Seth said, her voice tight with controlled emotion. "A front-row seat to systematic oppression disguised as natural order. Do you know what it's like to possess empathic abilities in a society built on the suffering of others, Captain? Can you imagine feeling the despair of thousands of people who have been told their pain is necessary for the greater good?" Marcus studied the images, his human perspective allowing him to see injustices that Veltheri society had apparently normalized. "How long have you been documenting this?" "Since I was old enough to understand what I was seeing. 7 years of careful observation, recording, and analysis. 7 years of trying to bring these problems to the attention of people with the power to change things. And I was told that my youth made me naive, that my privilege made me ungrateful, and that my empathic abilities made me emotionally unstable. Every attempt to create reform was dismissed as the confused idealism of a spoiled child." Marcus stood and moved closer to the holographic display, studying the data with growing comprehension. The images weren't just emotional appeals. They were carefully documented evidence of systemic problems that would destabilize any society if left unaddressed. "This is remarkable work," he said quietly. You've identified structural problems that could threaten the entire empire if they continue unchecked. Lyraseth stared at him as if he had spoken in an alien language. You can see it. The problems are real. Of course they're real. Any human sociologist would recognize these patterns immediately. The question is, what do you want to do about them? For a moment, the princess seemed to struggle with some internal conflict. Then, as if making a decision that terrified and exhilarated her in equal measure, she gestured toward another biostorage unit. "There's more," she said, her voice dropping to a whisper. "Things I've discovered that go beyond social inequality. Captain Chen, I think my people are being deceived about the true nature of our society's foundation." The new display showed financial records, communications between high-ranking officials, and what appeared to be secret agreements with off-world entities. Marcus's human perspective, trained to recognize corruption and conspiracy, immediately grasped the implications. "My God," he breathed. "How deep does this go?" "All the way to the Imperial Council itself. Captain, the trade agreements, the social hierarchies, even the genetic purity laws. They're all designed to maintain a system that benefits a very small group of individuals while exploiting everyone else." Marcus turned to face her fully, seeing not a spoiled princess, but a young woman who had discovered truths that could reshape her entire civilization. "Lyraseth, do you understand what you're telling me? I'm telling you that everything my society claims to value is a lie designed to maintain power for the few at the expense of the many. I'm telling you that the reason no one will listen to me isn't because I'm wrong, but because I'm right, and that terrifies them." The room fell silent except for the soft humming of the bioarchitecture around them. Marcus found himself reassessing everything he thought he knew about this assignment. He had come here expecting to deal with a rebellious princess who needed guidance. Instead, he had found a brilliant young woman who had uncovered systematic corruption and was being punished for her efforts to expose it. "What do you want from me?" he asked finally. "Help me," she said simply. "Not to conform, not to accept injustice, but to find a way to create real change. You're human. Your species understands revolution, transformation, the idea that societies can evolve beyond their origins. Help me save my people from themselves." Marcus looked into her large, multifaceted eyes and saw something that made his chest tighten with unexpected emotion. Here was someone who would sacrifice her comfort, her relationships, even her freedom, all in service of trying to make her world a better place. The 17 previous mentors had failed not because the task was impossible, but because they had never understood what they were truly being asked to do. "All right," he said, the word carrying the weight of a decision that would change both their lives. "But if we're going to do this, we need to be smart about it. Real change takes time, strategy, and allies." Lyraseth's skin brightened perceptibly, shifting toward a warm silver that indicated hope and excitement. "You'll really help me. I'll help you find a way to channel your passion for justice into effective action." "But Lyraseth, what we're talking about, it's not just challenging the system. It's revolution." "I know," she said, moving closer to him with fluid grace. "And for the first time in my life, I won't be facing it alone." As she reached out and touched his hand, Marcus felt a small electric shock that had nothing to do with her psychic abilities. In that moment, he realized that this assignment had become something far more complex and dangerous than anyone had anticipated. He was no longer just a diplomat trying to solve an interpersonal problem. He was a co-conspirator in what might become the most significant social transformation in Velthera history. And as he looked into Princess Lyraseth's eyes, he found himself wondering if he was prepared for the consequences of the path they were about to walk together.